Hey everybody, welcome to the Microsoft Executive Spotlight Series. My colleague Ted Kemp and I will be hosting a series of executives that are empowering Canadian companies and customers across the region on a regular basis and are partnering with Microsoft. Today's session is with a company called GoEasy, and we're joined by the CIO, whose name is Michael Eubanks. GoEasy is a Canadian company headquartered in Mississauga, Ontario, that provides non-prime leasing and lending services through its Easy Home and Easy Financial divisions. Michael is a business and technology professional with diverse and complex retail, financial services, operations, digital, information technology, and supply chain experience with the national retail firms in both the United States and Canada. Ted and I have asked Michael to join us today to talk a little bit about his business, talk a little bit about some of their challenges, talk about how they're supporting customers during the pandemic, and also enabling their business priorities through technology. So Michael, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you taking the time to do this with us.
Thank you. Appreciate the invite.
Let me start off by asking you to share with us a little bit about GoEasy. Talk to us a little bit about your business model and your role in the company.
Yeah, I think you said it off the top. We provide lending and leasing services to Canadians across the country. We've got over 300 lending services branches, about over 200 leasing stores. So our job is to, again, get to every Canadian that requires lending services as well as leasing services within the country of Canada. I'm responsible for all of the technology. That's in our stores, in our head office primarily, and that's to make sure that our customers have great service via the technology, and our employees are enabled by some of that technology. So that's my primary role.
Michael, the perpetual elephant in the room is adapting to the situation that we're all in that is caused by the pandemic. Can you share with us a little bit about, have you had to reprioritize or take on new initiatives to support your customers and your people because of the pandemic?
Yeah, listen, I think we all have had to adjust professionally and personally. I think, what we've done GoEasy is, again, put the customer first, safety first, and our employees, of course, first. So like everybody else, we've taken precautions at our stores, at our branches, and of course at our head office to make sure that everyone is safe. We've got people working remotely at our head office, but in our stores, again, we're complying with all local rules and laws to ensure, if open, our customers are safe. Now, the good news for us, we've been deemed an essential service, so we have been open throughout the pandemic. And again, we've made sure that our customers are safe and our employees are safe. As far as adjustments, it's really enabling our employees to deal with their customers remotely in a very efficient way. So we've been working very closely with our field to ensure that they've got the tools and the applications to be able to deal with their customers. And of course, for our folks at head office, same thing, making sure that they can work remotely, and of course, using some of the Microsoft tools to do so.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate that, Michael. And that's a common story we've heard from a number of organizations. So glad that you guys were able to transform and hopefully not skip a beat, right, with people moving locations. I want to shift the conversation a bit and talk about your business model, and no business model conversation would be complete without talking about competition. So how do you look to set yourself apart from the competition and instill that level of trust, right, in your customers?
Yeah. So again, it may feel like apple pie when we talk about customer first and employee first, but I truly believe that's how we operate within the corporation. It's in our vision, it's in our mission, it's in the way that we work. And I think what may be different for us, not only saying it, but we do execute. We do execute with the customer in mind. We do execute with the employee in mind, where when we make decisions, we have that lens. And not only do we have that lens, we actually try and ensure that we can empathize, we can sympathize. We've worked the process, we've worked the store, we sit in the customer's seat, we sit in the employee seat to make sure that we understand exactly how they can be efficient, how they can be effective, and more importantly, how the customer sees value. So we've tried to ensure as a corporate culture to make sure that we can empathize, we can live within our customers' shoes, and make sure that our employees can live within our customers' shoes. And we use that lens for how we deploy and how we go to market. And we think that's a differentiator, whether or not it's at the branch level, at the street level, retail level, or on the phone or virtually engaging our customers and our employees.
That's great. I mean, empathy is such a strong word. You use it a couple of times, right? When you were speaking, and it's something that we embrace over here as well. You know, try to be empathetic and put yourself in someone else's shoes. So it's very nice and refreshing to hear that spoken back to us, right? By a successful firm such as yours.
Yeah, listen, it's kind of ironic, you know, coming from a couple of technologists, but it to me, it's probably the first step. You know, one of the things that we use as a first principle is, you know, let's talk about the people in the process, and then let's talk about the technology. So what you find in our shop, whether or not it's the IT folks or just the overall support center of our customers and employees, is making sure that we understand the process, we understand the people, and then talk about the technology and how it can enable our values and our principles and satisfying that ultimate goal of the customer.
Yeah, excellent.
Framing the drivers is one thing, but one of the key things you mentioned there is the execution part of it, is really being able to be put in a position for you to execute, for your team to execute, and ensure the overall customer success. But you also talked a little bit about the values and the principles that you apply. Can you share with us a little bit about some of those values and principles that you apply, but also how do you ensure sustainability in terms of the growth and the execution as well?
Yeah, so I'm going to start a little bit of technical, just because I think it's important, at least, you know, from my lens. One of the things that I have to do is take an enterprise view. So I'll use the word architecture. And it is so important that, you know, when we make investments, that we start with the architecture and ensuring that whatever we're trying to enable has a full macro view of the corporation, of the need, so that it can scale, so that it can be sustainable. So one of the things that we do corporately and very specifically in the IT department is ensuring that we've got an architecture view that holds the concept of enterprise, that makes sure that, you know, whatever we're doing can scale, and then more importantly, that it can be sustained, whether or not it's technical sustainability or just process or people sustainability. So those are things that are very, very important for us as we think about solving problems, enabling the business, and pushing things forward.
Great. Let me pick up on that. Was hoping maybe you could share with us some of the more innovative things you've been able to do through the use of technology within your organization, whether you're dealing with, you know, innovation for your employees, customers, what have you. Could you share a couple things that you've been focusing on?
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. You know, I've been at GoEasy for less than a year, so a lot of my time here has been, you know, just figuring out, you know, what we've got and what we need to do. So a lot of block tackling. I'm happy to say that, you know, I've got a great asset base to be able to leverage and innovate in the future. I would say this without any specifics. We've got an opportunity here based on this cloud first, mobile first, you know, enterprise view to do a lot of different, unique, innovative things, not only for GoEasy, but for the industry. So I'm very excited about that. Like every business, we've got lots of problems to solve. Some of our problems, I would say, are industry problems, and I'm pretty bullish as it relates to our ability not only to solve the problem for GoEasy, but potentially, you know, be instrumental in solving the problem for industry. So you probably need to stay tuned on that because I'm early days. But again, the early direction is we've got lots of opportunities to make some innovation happen in our space.
Let me ask you, maybe it could be perceived as a little bit of a softball question, but talk a little bit about the importance of data, right, within the organization, and can you share maybe some of the things you might be thinking about? Because data is a big story for us, and when we're talking to our, because we can actually do something with that data in many cases, like we haven't been able to do in the past. So I'm just curious what you might be thinking there.
Yeah, so listen, you're right on point. I mean, we just came through a strategic planning session, and data, of course, was top of mind. We've got a program called Next Gen Data Management for the corporation. And really, the essence is that, there's a whole bunch of things that we currently do with information. And there's a number of things that we'd like to do that we currently haven't enabled, i.e., bringing in new data sources, model those data sources, and have it influence some of the decisions that we make and some of the decisions that our branches and our employees would make as it relates to servicing our customer. So it is a big deal, as it relates to our strategy. And I would say that if you were poll our board, our CEO, he'd tell you that if it's not number one, it is close to the top as it relates to a differentiator for our future and our strategy. So big opportunity for us, for sure.
Might even be able to draw an arc from the data to empathy, right? As we're dealing with the customers, right? You never know.
That's clever.
The data, the empathy, and the asset base that's setting you up for to do future innovative things, right? Tell me, how do you see Microsoft playing a role in that partnership to do innovative things?
Yeah, listen, we talk about the asset base, and really what I should have said is asset base plus partners. I mean, we've been able to grow exponentially over the last couple of years, and we expect to continue on that pace. And a lot of it has to do with our technology partners and leveraging their services, their capabilities as it relates to what we want to do in market and get to market quickly. So I think about, partners like Microsoft, when, you need to do something quickly, when you need best practices, industry expertise, and just advisory, services and help. Partners like yourself are right at the table and really provide insight on how we can do things and mostly how we can do things differently and better. So I would tell you that our partners like Microsoft are core and key to us.
Yeah, well, Michael, obviously we should have said this at the outset too. Thank you very much for your partnership in being a customer. I always like to ask this question because I think it is really interesting to hear coming from our side. But if you had to pick one, two, maybe three things that Microsoft brings to the table that helped you in your decision to work with Microsoft in your organization, what would those things be?
Yeah, look, I think, from a Canadian perspective, that there is Canadian presence, and maybe I should say Canadian expertise.
Oh.
And we'll like to say that we're unique in some ways. Some people may debate that, but we are. And
you're going to make Ted feel out of place there, Michael.
It's all good.
Hey, listen, just say hi to your brethren over in Canada. But, the fact that you've got Canadian presence here, and it doesn't mean you have to be Canadian, but you've got your presence here means you can empathize, you can see the uniquenesses and some of the requirements, whether or not it's regulatory or legislative, that may be unique to our country and to our environment. So to have that presence here, I think is very powerful. And then on the opposite end, the fact that you're global gives me a view to, how can I tap into some of that global know-how? How can I tap into some of the global reach, global partnerships, some things that I perhaps wouldn't see based on being in this region? So I think the combination of the two really provides us, a wealth of assets that can be leveraged, and I know that I appreciate that.
Fantastic.
That's excellent, and I love being in Canada with you and supporting you locally as well. So appreciate the shout out there, Michael. When it comes to the asset base, the partner selection, having that foundation to ensure that you're set up or you're in an accelerated position to do innovative things, more often than not, I guess 10 out of 10 times, you'd probably have to adopt a change management plan. Can you share with us a little bit about the change management process that you have to adopt when ensuring that your asset base and your partners are selected successfully, i.e. Microsoft?
Yeah, listen, that's a very good point. And ironically, I just completed our first annual vendor summit, and it was held last week, and I think we had some folks from Microsoft attend. And, the primary purpose for that was to give my partners a head start on what's important to me. What is the priority? What am I working on? So your question, what can we do, and what's the partners, do as it relates to, trying to help? is give you the information, right? So in the summit, what we did is we gave you our strategy and said, hey, this is what we're working on. This is what's important. And I think this is where you guys can help us. So let's continue to collaborate and see where you can support us. So I think education and bringing our partners into our strategy sessions, what's important, our prioritization gives you guys a head start. So when we do engage, it's not, a fact-finding mission, exactly what's important to us. So that's probably number one. Number two is really get our partners familiar with our culture, right? And again, I'd like to say our culture is very unique. A couple of attributes. We were heavily performance driven. And, we're a high growth company, so we like to move fast and we also like to pivot. Now, when that comes to, your statement around change management, we would argue that's the norm, right? Not the exception. And because of that, we want partners to be able to pivot with us. And that means, if something comes up, we need you available. If I need you to go left, I need to make sure that you're going left with me. Similar if we're working on a project. So I think it's being very transparent as it relates to who we are as an organization and what matters. So, performance, speed to market, and the ability to pivot and have our partners pivot with us. And typically what we say to our partners is, there's a certain profile of person that thrives in those organizations. Like you, we go through a lot of things when we hire our people because those things culturally are important to us. It's the same lens we will use with our partners. And what I'd ask our partners to do is when you're going to engage us and perhaps provide a service and provide a resource to us, ask yourself, will this person fit based on these attributes? Performance, empathy, being able to pivot, all of those things. So again, these are the type of things that, we try to make sure are very, very obvious and obvious to our partners so that they can put their best foot forward when engaging us.
So Michael, I'm listening very closely to what you're saying, and you did a really excellent job articulating the relationship that you like to establish with your technology providers, right? You talked about in one of your earlier responses about having a local Canadian presence or having a global presence, and now being able to shift, bob and weave as the business changes and things get thrown at you. And so, we value that as well. And I really appreciated how you articulated that. So thank you for that. It's super important to us. Curious, the end result oftentimes about the decisions that get made at your level about technology is reflected back to you in how the end users adopt the technology. And I was wondering if you had any insights you could share with us in terms of how the end users have found working with the Microsoft solutions that you are using in your organization.
Yeah, look, I'll be honest. I mean, the pandemic really forced people to kind of deal with it. So typical adoption patterns and timing were thrown out the window. I mean, this was about survival. So I would say this: we are now using those experiences as teaching moments and points of confidence as it relates to deploying and adopting technology. So I think what we learned, at least in the short term, is, when forced to, you can do it. If you have time to plan, you can do it well. You can do it better. So one of the things that we're doing here when we think about typical deployment is really this concept of doubling down on, I don't want to call it generic training, but I'll call it active training. So where we're in the moment, we're live, virtual, but, in the moment, live, trying to give people a view to, screen share, have them do it. So very, very hands-on virtually. And at some point in time when we are all back and on-prem, we would probably use the same tactics. How do we make sure, these things are tangible, real, for folks to really absorb?
Yeah. Sure.
That's incredible context. We talked overall about leveraging the asset base, identifying the right partners, and doing innovative things. Also change management and ensuring that there's successful user adoption and user enablement, right? I know this might be a little bit of a tough question to ask you primarily based on your tenure, but I'll ask it anyway. What would be some of the lessons learned that you would say has happened as you've continued to make those technology partner decisions, perform those type of change management processes, and ensure user enablement and user adoption is successful? What are some of the key lessons that you would call out?
Yeah, listen, I think for ultimate success, like the user needs to feel that the tool, the service has been delivered, as per their need. So there's got to be this value quotient that exists. So to get there, the thing that I encourage and sometimes even demand is that when we are developing, configuring, inventing, you need to do it in the eyes of the user. So how do we do that? By two things: ensuring that we are working side by side with the user, and then we also become the user. As an example, when we deploy things into our field, and we've got representatives in our field working with our customers, I ask our people, our developers, our architects, the people that are designing, configuring, to do exactly the same thing. Go to the store, work the process, feel and understand it, so that when we come back to whiteboard, it is actually practical. It's based on what you've experienced. It's based on what you saw, what you told. It's real. It is not the theory. So that's one of the things that we try to do all the time, so that at the end of the day, if it's seen of value, then it gets adopted, because again, it's satisfying and resolving a problem or enabling, an objective for the employee to satisfy the customer.
That's great. I think that's actually a really good place to leave it, Michael. Really excited to be partnering with you. From the many conversations we continuously have, I just love the exciting things that you guys are doing overall from a people, process, technology perspective. So glad to have you with us. Thank you so much for sharing all the context that you have. I'm sure our viewers will find it as valuable as we did. So appreciate it, and all the best. Thank you.
Thank you.